Professor Alessandro Golimbiewski Teixeira is a world-famous economist. He has a very oriental Chinese name, Fu Xin. He is a professor at the School of Public Policy and Management of Tsinghua University and a professor at Tsinghua Schwarzman College. He has rich experience in politics, having served as the Minister of Tourism and the Special Economic Advisor to the President of Brazil. In 2008, Teixeira was named Latin American Person of the Year by the Financial Times. He won Brazil's highest honor, the Commend of Rio Branco, in 2008 and 2014. Today, join us at Tsinghua University as we meet with this full-time professor who has lived in China for 4 years. What does he think of China's development? What are his expectations for China-Brazil cooperation? The first thing I would like to talk about is your name, which is Fu Xin, and it seems to reflect very oriental cultural ideals, which are auspiciousness and wealth. And how did you come to select these two characters?
That's a very nice question, because when I arrived in China, well, I have my Western name, but every Chinese would ask, what's your Chinese name, right? So I have to sit with my family, my wife, and decided, because we decided when we moved here that we're going to stay here for a long time, okay? And my daughter was only 1 year old, so she goes to a Chinese school, so she needs to have a Chinese name. So first we came up with the family name, Fu, okay? And then we saw interesting names for me, for my wife, and my daughter. So basically what we want is a good vibration, good energy. Positive, something really positive, and that's the nice thing about the Chinese culture, because you can choose names that have meanings. So in some Western culture like us, we have names that doesn't have a meaning itself. So that's why we did a very careful research, and we took our Chinese Mandarin teacher to help us with the name. So that's why we come up with, in my case, Fu Xin, my daughter Fu Lin, and my wife, Fu Ming.
Oh, that's a really nice set of names. I love it. Recently, since the beginning of 2020, vaccines and economic recovery have become central pillars of the global effort that continues against COVID-19. And so aside from her own domestic anti-epidemic measures, China is providing vaccines to numerous other countries, including to Brazil, whose main source of vaccines is currently China. As an unbiased witness to the steps taken in China against the pandemic, how would you rate the performance of the government of China regarding disease control and economic recovery? And what elements of China's experience do you think can be applied in those other countries and regions that are still severely affected?
I think when you look the crisis, the pandemic crisis, one of the things that you can see, and if you want to give a number to China, is going to be 10. Okay? Because with the size of population and the way China controlled the pandemic in the country, it's outstanding performance. Countries that normally, traditionally, would do a good performance, like United States, or even the largest country in Latin America, like Mexico and Brazil, they did horrible. Okay, you see the numbers in the United States, you see the numbers in Brazil up to now, and there's disaster. So the first conclusion that we don't know how to manage crisis and disaster, that's clear. Okay, and on the other hand, China did a great job, but did a great job because took very serious first testing. That's very important. First testing. So you see tests everywhere. Other countries like United States, even in Europe, even in Brazil, there is no test available. Some people they test, others they don't test. So how do you measure? How do you know how fast it's going to spread? So you don't know. Okay, so you cannot have control. So China did a very good job in controlling. So that's the first thing. Second, was very serious in put all the research, and that's very important, all the research, resources, people, money, to come up very fast with vaccines. And already we have at least 4 different vaccines already being prepared in China. 2 of those are well known around the world. the Sinovac and Sinopharm, okay? One are being using very much inside China, okay? With more, I think the numbers is more than 400 million people vaccinated in more than 1 month, the number of doses. So the control is very important, the vaccination is very important, the research is very important, and most important, like me, foreigner, I was out of China when the pandemic happened. I was in Portugal, and then to come back, they put me almost 1 month in quarantine, and I think was very positive. Although it's very tough for a person to be in quarantine for almost a month, especially my wife and my kid, but it's very serious. You know, I arrived, I went to quarantine in Shanghai, 2 weeks in Shanghai, then I came to Beijing, more a week quarantine at home, so almost 3 weeks, and then more 1 week in quarantine in Shenzhen. So that's very important to me, because that shows how leadership is being applicable to a disaster case, and that's why I rate China 10.
Of course, we can understand that the quarantine is very important, but how did you feel during that time?
Quarantine, it's a very tough time because you are almost arrested in a small hotel room. But I think if you have an understanding, that's what I was talking to my wife. I said, this is important because when you're out, you know that you went through the quarantine, you are not contaminating anybody else. And this is the important thing, the sense of the China society and civilization means that the collective is more important than the individual. And when I compare to my country right now, unfortunately, leadership of my country is very weak because they believe that the individual needs to overcome the collective. And that's the mistake, because we are not in a normal situation. We are in a pandemic that kills people. For us that we live together was time to talk, to discuss future plans, to spend more time with our daughter, 24 hours for almost a month. You know, so it's, I think I took it very well this time, and I would do it again if I need it.
Okay, that's great. So there's always a silver lining, isn't it? More time with the family.
Yes.
Okay, so as we know, China is a very important partner in Brazil's fight against COVID-19, exporting 100 million doses of the vaccine to Brazil. And unfortunately, President Bolsonaro recently made comments politicizing the pandemic and stigmatizing China, which was seen as an attack on an old friend. Do you know the reason why the president made this about-face? And how do you feel about it? And is it related to pressure from some Western powers?
Look, at first I feel very bad. He's always downplayed the importance of this. He said clearly in all the newspapers, oh, this is a little flu, you know, you can go out. If people die, they die. So it's very stupid questions that we should expect for a leader of a largest country in Latin America. Okay? So that's the first thing. Second, I think he doesn't think what he says, okay? Because China is the first trade partner, is the first investment in Latin America, and is really helping. Because the majority of doses that you receive it are from China, are manufacturing from the São Paulo government at Butantan, with help, and a lot of help, of Sinovac, okay? So he should be more careful what he says, okay? And third, I think there is not a pressure from Western countries about this issue. I think it's his personal issue, okay? And his lack of good ability, and I would say at least politeness, to treat a partner that is helping you. So that's the situation. And of course, this is affecting the relation between Brazil and China, and more is affecting the people of Brazil. You know, so everybody is a general, I would say, agreement in Brazil that he's misconducting the crisis in Brazil, taking to politicize a situation that is a human disaster. And I think no one in the world as a leader has the right to do so. He was elected to help Brazil and to help Brazilian people, and he's doing directly the opposite, in my opinion.
So in your opinion, the Brazilian people don't support this position of his?
Some part of the Brazilian people support because they have the same view of him. Some people think, okay, I don't need to use masks, This thing of staying home is taking my individual rights, you know. You always have support in one, but the majority of Brazilian population, they are scared, okay, because the pandemic, if he act, in my opinion, if he act earlier, probably Brazil would be out already with the economy working, but because he goes against science, he goes against what's happening in the world, so Brazil is taking more time to recover economically. And basically, that's the main problem.
Yeah, it's really a shame, isn't it?
It's very a shame.
The year 2021 is the centenary of the Communist Party of China. Over the past 100 years, the Communist Party of China has united and led the Chinese people to achieve the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. And socialism with Chinese characteristics has entered a new era. What blessings does Professor Teixeira have on the centenary of the Communist Party of China? Let's continue. The year 2021 is very significant for China, being the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China and the beginning of a new stage in the battle to eradicate poverty and build a moderately prosperous society. So could you discuss your views on the CPC and its 100 years? And do you have a message of congratulations or best wishes you'd like to share? And what do you hope to see in China's future?
As you said, it's a beautiful story. When the Communist Party was founded in 1921, in Shanghai. So everybody that likes politics or studies likes to see the evolution of the party. And that's very important. Why? Because the party, different than many parties in the world, achieve modernization. They evolve with the China challenges. So in my opinion, the party has been doing a great job in different levels and in different areas. And I believe that this is important for China because with the strong leadership of the Communist Party in China, China achieved development. China today is not just a country that has economic growth, but has development, okay? And has created different paradigms. For example, the socialism with Chinese characteristics, it's the exclusive model of China. It has absorbed the Chinese characteristics. Now is a new stage of development in China called, I would say, scientific development. Okay, we have a dual circulation system. In one side, we have the domestic economy, one of the strong engines. The other side, you have the exports. So I believe the Communist Party is leading China in the right direction. Especially not just in economic field, but social field. For example, eradication of extremely poverty in China. 2 decades ago, China was a poor country. And we move, after 20 years, China is the best example of evolution in terms of economic growth. Okay? So that's important. So I wish for the Communist Party long life, continue in that direction because it's very important for China. It's very important not for China, for the world, because it's a good example of how leading a nation, how to plan a long-term nation, how to achieve goals, how to change policies, okay? So China, really, the Communist Party implemented what really any people from the academia, like me, that study public policy, want to see in a country. Planning, execution, reformulation, replanning, all the different stages of public policies there. And I would like to see China in that way. I want to see China as a developed country very soon. I want to see China giving an example of how to take people out of poverty, how to combine economic success with social success. Why? Because China is important for the world, especially for developing nations, because of course you cannot copy a developed path, you cannot copy a developed model, but you can look China as a good example. And that's I'm wishing. So congratulations for the 100th birthday of the Communist Party, and I hope I will not be here, but I want to congratulate for the next 100th birthday.
So as a renowned economist, you understand very well that economics and politics are often two sides of the same coin. And we've seen some countries, such as the USA, interfering in the economic relationship and the internal affairs of other nations in response to claimed concerns about human rights. What do you think about this practice? And secondly, after quitting the UNHRC, the Human Rights Council, 3 years ago, now Washington has announced its intention to rejoin, but this will require the votes of 96 other countries. Do you think the Americans will work hard to convince Brazil to support their re-entry? And what is the overarching US strategy when it comes to human rights, and how do you think that would affect global relationships?
We have 4 years of Donald Trump, okay? And Donald Trump, I think, is an outlier in terms of how American people feel.
We hope so,
yeah. And then the policy of Donald Trump, in my opinion, was a bullying policy, okay, confrontation. Working in a multilateral level requires for you to have the capability to listen, to process, and to work in groups. That's something that I didn't see in the government of Donald Trump. So that's the first thing. I think Biden is a different political person. He wants to work in a multilateral level, and obviously we know, being from Latin America, that the United States is engaged, and he thinks they have a mission in the world to show their, how do I say, their democracy is the best system in the world, and to try to impose sometimes their model to other nations, okay, and don't respect other nations. I think the case of human rights is clearly, okay. If I was a president of a country, I would say, Biden, solve your own problems, because United States has huge problems in human rights, okay. We see minorities in the United States. You're talking about Latin, you're talking about black, you're talking about gender problems, not racial, but gender. So all these issues are inside the United States. So the United States is not dealing well with its own human rights policies inside the United States. So why you go advocate or trying to touching other people's problems? Solve your problems first, okay? So that's the first thing. So I think it's a characteristics of the United States. Even when they are not called upon to go to some place, they believe it's their duty, okay? And something that I'm from Brazil, I disagree, okay? I think the Chinese policy in that case of respect sovereignty of other countries are much important. Each one knows how to take care. You have cultural influences, you have social structure influences, okay? United States is going to have a really hard time to go back to the council. It needs to do a really multilateral diplomacy for be accepted. And I believe that one of the requirements many countries they want to ask the United States is this: okay, work out your own problems, interfere less in other countries' problems. And I think would be nice, because the United States has many problems in terms of what CIA, FBI does outside the country. You take for Cuba, Guantanamo is a good example. Okay, they arrest a lot of people that they so-called terrorists. They are not terrorists. Okay, they are activists. There is a big difference in that sense. Okay, you hear about torture. You hear about a lot of war crimes. You have very sensitive issues. So stay where you are and work your problems. Don't go to other countries try to point fingers. I think it's a wrong decision, and I'm sure Biden government is much more sensitive to those issues than was Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think it's easier to criticize others than to look inward, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, we all feel that Biden's government will be more mature and more capable at dealing with these things. I'm not sure if the direction has completely changed. So we'll stop talking about other countries and we'll talk about China and Brazil as well,
yes.
Okay? China is Brazil's largest trading partner, and more Chinese enterprises are investing in Brazil. What is the premise of closer cooperation between China and Brazil in the future? How can China and Latin America, including Brazil, seize the fleeting opportunities for interactive development? Face to Face continues. China and Brazil have a lot in common, of course. Both are BRICS members. They're both emerging markets with considerable populations, and the two are also mutually beneficial with plentiful exchanges between their respective governments and between the people. China is Brazil's largest trading partner, with great demand in China for Brazilian agricultural products and iron ore. And more Chinese businesses are choosing to invest here in Brazil. As a former government minister and a renowned economist who is intimately familiar with these two countries and their markets, what do you consider are the areas with the greatest potential for further cooperation between Brazil and China? And what opportunities must Brazil and other South American countries grasp as soon as possible?
I think the relations between Brazil and China has changed, really has jumped in a good and a positive direction since the year of 2000. Okay? Traditionally, China was the third partner of Brazil until it was United States, Latin American countries, and then China, and sometimes European China. But after 2000, China really, I would say, worked very hard to be one of the first trade partners in Brazil, and it is right now. Okay, after 20 years, 2 decades, is the first FDI, foreign direct investor in Brazil as well, in many strategical areas like energy, infrastructure, very important. This year already, in terms of trade, comparing last year, we are up almost 15%.
This is the exports?
The exports, yeah, $6 billion in trade. So that's a very good numbers. Okay. Most important is that we need to evolve besides only trade and investment. I think there is a lot of I would say ground to cover in terms of tourism. China is the first country to send tourists out of China. After the pandemic, I think, and I believe, since I was the Minister of Trade for a while, I believe that we had to have a special plan for Chinese to visit Brazil, okay, and show different things, because Brazil is complementary to China in many aspects. And I think there is an area that we need to foster, is the exchange of technology, university, and science technology cooperation. We are not very strong on this, and I think, answer your question, what Latin American countries can take from that, I think, is to have a better participation in Belt and Road Initiative, okay? Not just covering infrastructure projects, but basically science technology parks, and attract more Chinese in terms of investment in innovation and technology. I think that's where Chinese are willing to go.
That's fascinating. So, of course, Belt and Road is a very broad-ranging initiative. It could include all kinds of investment opportunities. And so you think some new technology is something that South America can also help China with?
Yes, there is different technology. For example, when you take you see how China is evolving in several important technology. If you take, for example, logistics, satellite, IoT, artificial intelligence, big data, all these technologies are being not just developed by China, but China has in some of them leadership in the world. Okay, we are talking about big data, we are talking about satellite technology. Okay. Those technologies are very important for Latin America because we don't have it. Let me give an example. Latin America is one of the powerhouses in producing of agriculture. Satellite technology in low orbit satellite can help to improve and to control the performance and the productivity of agriculture in Latin America. Okay, so how will you combine this? How we transfer technology that will at the end benefit China? Why? Because if you have a better and more productive in terms of agriculture, this goes back to the Chinese consumers in terms of quantities, qualities, and price. The same in logistics, okay? If you invest, and that's what Chinese have been doing, if you invest in infrastructure in Latin America, obviously the cost of logistics is going to go down, and the price of the products that China buys go down. So it's a win-win situation.
Okay, sounds very promising indeed. And you mentioned already tourism as an area for future further cooperation. So even though the international movement of people right now is largely restricted, the trend towards greater integration between countries and peoples remains. And Brazil is a very important market for Chinese and also world tourism. So if in the future I'm going to visit Brazil for a holiday, what sites or what cultural experiences do you think I really have to go and enjoy?
Yeah. Let me talk just a step back. Although we are in pandemic, people cannot go from one place to another. the Brazilian government and the governments around the world can promote Brazil because you are at home. So why don't give you elements exactly in that question that you ask, where I could go? What is the packages I have? You don't need to go, but you research. More than 75% of tourism around the world, they research before they go abroad. They want to see it. It's not because you cannot travel right now that you cannot absorb knowledge about the country.
Sure.
Okay, so that's my first comment, and that's what Brazil is not doing right now. Okay? The second element, you ask me where you can go. In Brazil, as China is is a large country, very diversified. South from north is the same as China. South is cold, north is hot. Okay, so I would say, okay, if you want to see, for example, natural resources, okay, in terms of beaches, forests, Brazil is very rich in biodiversity. So I would tend to tell Chinese people, first, if they want to see a city, okay, they can go to Rio de Janeiro. Of course, is our first place people would go. Okay, why? Because you have an integration between a city and the biodiversity. But there is two places that you cannot miss in Brazil. One is the Amazon forest in the north of Brazil. Why? Because you're going to see a biodiversity that you will not find in any place in the world. And the second place is called Pantanal. It's the center of the country. It's a different biodiversity with tropical forests and with a wildlife that is amazing. And the third place I would recommend, not in this order of course, but would be the northeast of Brazil that has one of the most, I would say, coastlines, most beautiful coastlines in the world. Okay, and they are very close to each other, and you can go and see different cities, and with that you can see our culture, with that you can see our gastronomy. So I think in those three locations, the northeast with the beaches, scenery, the north with the Amazon forest, and the center of Brazil with the tropical forest, you can see, and obviously when you are in the center of Brazil, you can stop in Brasilia. That is architecture, world-renowned city, was a planned city. So it's really beautiful, and you can see how the capital of Brazil is built and how it works.
Okay. I noticed you didn't mention your own home.
No,
is it because you're too familiar?
No, I didn't mention my own home because it's too large. And if you, like China, if you want to visit China, you need at least 3-4 months.
Yeah.
So giving options for people would say, go to those places, because I think it would be a different experience than China.
That's great, thank you. And finally, we would like to invite you to offer a greeting in Chinese, because I know you speak some Chinese, to the global Chinese community who are right behind this camera.
大家好，我是复兴老师，祝大家福寿安康。